What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. As we enter the whatever arc, as we pioneer whatever core, or perhaps rediscover it, young Skimmerlit was much more sophisticated on the whatever front. I've been thinking about coolness. How do you know when someone is cool? Or what makes someone cool? I think coolness basically boils down to getting your way, or imposing your will, or the inability for your will to be challenged. Because I was thinking about this. There are a bunch of ways to be cool. It was like what Colin Quinn was talking about in Long Story Short, I think, with the battle between smart guys and tough guys throughout the ages. But really, anything can be cool. As long as you, with your sophistication or your ability, whatever it is, are imposing your will. And then to a lesser extent, having your place in the world. Pretty cool is having your place. Really cool is making your place. And I think that's why masculinity, when deployed by men and women, is in general cooler than femininity. However, there are ways femininity can be cool, but that's trickier. And that's the main thing we'll be talking about today, but I want to get through some other things too. Because I was looking at old pictures of myself earlier, and I was disgusted with myself. Mega douche chills looking at high school Skimmerlit. Because there's another distinction here. I think coolness and popularity, they feel like they should overlap. Often they do overlap, but not always. When you've got nothing, your idea of how to be cool is trying to convince people you are cool. And there are 1,000 ways you can do that, but it doesn't matter because you stink. You smell lame. You make people cringe. And it's interesting because a lot of uncoolness is popular. Even if a person or a method is successful, is popular, going the cringe route, they still stink because they've gotten up to their heights, whatever heights they've achieved, by subordinating their will to whatever the group is into right now for whatever reason. And you can tell the difference between a person who is popular but not cool and a person who is cool but not popular in endurance. Let's think of some canceled people. On the one hand, the popular side, you have Tracy Morgan. On the other side, you have Mel Gibson. Tracy Morgan was able to get shoved off his pedestal and dragged around, and is now basically irrelevant. I haven't heard that name outside O&A shit in... I can't remember when. I don't even know if he's still alive. Because Tracy didn't get to where he was by imposing his will. Tracy was made, not self-made. So the moment someone spanks him, he yelps, and then he is no longer popular because the population has deemed him unpopular. And he's not cool, so he can't make his own place. Versus Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson did a bunch of terrible things, and he did a bunch of embarrassing things. And people tried to spank him. But he's Mel Gibson. He's Mad Max. He made Apocalypto. That's Passion of the Christ. That's Hacksaw Ridge. Mel Gibson endures. Or another example. Kevin Hart versus Patrice O'Neal. Kevin Hart is wildly successful. Very popular. But Kevin Hart stays in his lane, and the few times he's even hinted anything that might be unpopular, he gets spanked and he gets right back in line. I don't know of anyone who respects Kevin Hart as a living will. He's a conduit for what an audience segment wants. Versus Patrice O'Neal. People who know of him either really love him or really hate him. He figured out a way to be cool and to be a living will, even in death. So you can impose your will by being a violence guy. Lots of UFC fighters are really cool while also being complete retards, or complete embarrassments, or literal criminals. Especially the criminals, actually. MMA dudes can present themselves as living poison dart frogs because they are effectively dangerous enough to get away with it. Old Jim from YouTube. I don't know if he still streams. I stopped watching. There was a distinct moment, I think a couple streams into his comeback, after which something felt wrong and I stopped watching him, but all before that, the coolest, because he was smart, quick, and funny enough to humiliate anyone who said anything against him ever. He made great content, the best content, but a lot of people make good content. What sets Jim above, you can't really fuck with him. Same thing with Kanye. Wealth, willpower, intelligence, comedy, Joe Dipshit can't fuck with him. You'll notice I've named no women. That's what got me thinking about woman coolness. I've noticed when most women are trying to be cool, because I think everybody has a sense of the difference between coolness and popularity. And it's interesting, you would think women would be more drawn to popularity and men more drawn to coolness, but it's actually inverted, at least in my experience. Women who do often end up stuck more in the popular camp crave coolness, and vice versa for dudes for some reason. But in any case, most people who are visible end up in the popular camp, versus in the cool camp, it's a lot of dudes and a few women. Because another thing, while it seems like everybody has an understanding of the difference between popularity and coolness, few people seem like they understand what makes that distinction. So what they'll do, and you see this in everybody, we'll be fair, people will clothe themselves in popularity, and they will try to act popularly, right? So they'll make themselves look like a popular archetype, they'll say popular things, and then they will go around trying to convince people they are cool. And that fucks everything up. Because what they're doing is they're getting into Joe Dipshit's car, and then they're trying to drive to Joe Cool's house. Or a better way to think of it, everybody says Nerf bats are really cool because they protect the kids, they can't hurt anybody, and hurting people is really bad and you shouldn't do that. So Nerf bats, that's really cool, and Nerf bats get really popular. So you pick up a Nerf bat, and then you go try to impose your will on a gorilla using your Nerf bat. And that doesn't end well. You should have picked up the sword, the actual sword, even though it's unpopular, even though everybody will hate you, because it doesn't matter if everybody hates you. You, with your sword, can kill things, the gorilla included. And then involuntarily, people will start to love you or to hate you. Maybe behind closed doors at first, but in that enduring fashion, eventually the truth will come out. Kanye has been public enemy at least number 4 for the last 10 years, but nobody can make him go away. Because in truth, despite what is said popularly, Kanye West is cool, and nobody wants him to go away. Do you remember when Bernie and Trump were cool? Or at least theatrically, they were perceived to be cool. Do you want to know the most unfortunate thing in life? The truth always wins. On a long enough time scale, the truth will win. Unfortunately, it's not on your time scale. It's not within your sight a lot of the time. It's probably also not what you believe. You think you believe in the truth and you're an ally of the truth hates you. The truth will wipe its ass with you because you aren't the truth. The truth is the truth. But I think that's where the power or the effect of coolness comes from, because coolness is a lot like the truth. You can impose yourself or you can't. Okay, now we get more into the man-woman stuff. Because while there are a bunch of popular but not cool dudes, women run popularity at the moment. I don't understand this. I don't understand how this works. How is lame shit so popular right now? This is temporary. This will change. Maybe not on any time scale we'd like, but this is a lameness bubble. You have the they-thems, which are almost exclusively women, which is like the matcha of genders. You took something that was pretty important and commercialized it and diluted it and are now selling it as this authenticity thing, as this organic thing. Don Draper ass. You have dumb bitches in your ear like Father Elijah telling you what it means to live a good life and how you'd better live your life. But it's like they're watching a completely different screen, or they're playing a completely different game with a completely different set of rules, probably because they are fucking welfare leeches, acting like they're right and they had better be obeyed because they have numbers on their side. Big issue with democracy. Republics. People raised on the idea they are important or they are special, that they deserve a say solely because they exist, while being protected enough from reality not to need to learn how things actually work. The truth. But the truth always wins. Painfully. Terrible truth. Probably just not anytime soon, unfortunately. But this is a bubble. I hope you recognize that this is a bubble. This is popular psychosis on a scale so grand, we have a hard time recognizing it as such. And it's not just women who are responsible for this, as I said. Dudes are in there, and it's more dudes every day. And it's not all women, because there are women in the cool camp, but it's a lot of them. And it's more dudes. There are fewer and fewer even aspirationally cool people every day, right? Because cool people are the ones who have the ability, once they've ascended enough, to challenge a status quo or to set a new status quo. Whereas popular people are good at reinforcing a status quo. That's why they're lame. Oh, and that's another thing. Theoretically speaking, it's not that they-thems are inherently lame. It's that they-themness is a tool used by lameness. They-themness could be a cool thing if deployed the right way by the right people, but it's not. They're cool lesbians. They're cool gay dudes. They're cool 0.001% trans. And more zeros are getting added to that every day, by the way. Unfortunately, I feel bad. We're going to have to cut them loose at some point. This is maybe some Titanic shit. I sat here and thought about what to compare this to. This is a leaving some people behind ass stuff, but we'll study their, not your. You've become a they now. No longer you. We will study their remains later and extract whatever we need to extract without their involvement. Probably. I feel like that's the direction we're moving in. This is all like when Christianity was cool. And for a little while, Christianity was cool. But then it became just another mechanism for popular lameness, subordinating lameness. Christianity stopped being a sword and became a net and an aviary. And that's probably been what it has been forever. But maybe things are fluid, maybe ideals or concepts are fluid. Maybe there are moments some people can turn things into swords all of a sudden. Who knows? We're still thinking about this. But I haven't seen a cool Christian in a long time. And this might have been 3-ish years ago. I think we talked about something a lot like this, but we framed it in masculinity and femininity terms. You can be cool within the feminine, but it's a lot harder. For example, Oscar Wilde, Weiss, Ethan Winters. I'm joking, except on the Oscar Wilde part and somewhat on the Weiss part. For serious, cool women are weird because they impose their will or because they possess power of their own will, but they get there almost always, if they're doing it through the feminine, through other people. Like the queen who runs things and tramples over her pussy husband, or the madam of a whorehouse, or the wise woman of a tribe, or a witch or something. These are powerful women. These are cool women. And thinking about it, it's like a perversion of popularity almost, which is kind of funny. Because their power, or they do derive their power from popularity, from the acceptance of others, but it's an acceptance they control. As in, these sorts of women, there's not an option but to be accepted, but to be popular with whoever they need to be popular with. It's cunning and brilliance. Yes, theoretically, people could decide to make them unpopular and take their pedestals out from underneath them, but that's almost certainly not going to happen because these women, these people in using the feminine, are Doc Holliday enough for that not to happen. So yes, people can become cool within the feminine model, but it's a different game. It's more like malicious gardening. And I think a big reason you see a lot of lame ass women in the feminine and not a lot of cool women in the feminine is precisely because it takes that degree of brilliance to be cool within the feminine. And not many people are born or able to become that brilliant, that cunning, and that disciplined in a lot of cases. Because all it takes is one fuck up for all that to go up in flames. Almost as bad as with the peak masculine cool women, whom we will get to shortly. Now, I hadn't put a lot of thought into this, but before we swap over to the masculine in relation to women, I think within the feminine there's also a degree of coolness for women who find their place within the feminine structure, the same way there's an analog for this within the masculine structure, but it is even less cool in terms of coolness than the masculine side of people who find their place. Unfortunately. Or to borrow some vernacular, a high-tier normie dude will always be cooler than a high-tier normie woman. The high-tier normie woman might be more popular for a little bit, but she pales in comparison to above average Joe Dipshit's coolness. Okay, now we swap over to the masculine. And I just realized this video will probably perform a lot better if I title it Woman Coolness versus Man Coolness, or Cool Women versus Cool Men, but I think we'll stick with Woman Coolness because that was the point that got this ball rolling. Now, the reason I say masculine high-tier normie beats feminine high-tier normie is masculine high-tier normie usually involves a degree of mastery in something. Someone who has mastered a trade of sorts, and their mastery of that trade allows them to assert their will or impose their will more than an average shit person could, because they've made themselves good at something necessary or desirable. So their will has to be tolerated, at least to an extent, or within their sphere. Ralph Cifaretto. Big earner. Ralph is cool as shit, not only because of his proclivity for sudden violence and fine taste in movies, but also because he earns so much money, people have to tolerate him. He has earned his place and then some. And this is a field or a plane in which there is a burgeoning community of actually cool women. Not tons and tons, not overflowing, but they're there. What is a relatively easy way to become a super cool, well-liked, popular, and cool woman? Get really good at something, especially if it's in a co-ed or male-dominated field, and be imposing enough without overstepping. And that's the thing that I think kills people, but women especially. Because women who are trying to be cool on the masculine side, really, if you fuck up one time, you're done. Dudes can fuck up a number of times and be okay, but women, or a woman who is trying to be cool and maybe succeeding at becoming cool in a dude sort of way, if they overstep one time, they're bust. They're done. And I don't mean this in the being bitchy and mouthing off sense and knowing your place woman, although keeping that in mind probably wouldn't be a terrible idea. When I say overstepping, I mean saying or else and having not enough to back it up. Remember when Wyatt Earp slaps the shit out of that dude in Tombstone? You never want to be that guy. And I think for women who are trying to become cool on the masculine side, it's very easy to become that guy. Because it's not just men who will be more willing to call your bluff. Women will too. Women love tearing down other women, especially in a mob. It's like Angie Bonpensero, exactly. She moves away from being a mob wife or a mob ex-wife into being a mob asset, and now all the mob wives hate her. Because she's better than they are. Because she can impose her will better than they can. Anyway, back to the overstepping thing. What I'm saying is, never push with the expectation someone will just give in. Right? Because that might work if you're on the popularity side, deep into the popularity side, and you have a billion people pushing alongside you. But if you're alone, and you will be alone, and you push, and you can't back it up, and someone calls your bluff, you are humiliated at best. And I notice women are more inclined, it's bluffing is what it is, but I don't think they think it's bluffing. Women are more inclined to bluff accidentally, Wile E. Coyote-ass bluffing, in masculine situations in which you really shouldn't. Because, and this is especially with the coolness thing, because it's all about power and imposition of will, the instant people realize you can't impose your will, then it's like all the stockpiles you've built up, poof, they go away. Versus with dudes, yeah, a dude can be humiliated, a dude can fuck up, a dude can bluff and mess it all up, but he's still existing in a male body. And it's probably a monkey thing, but if a dude's even 25% fit, he is given at least a little bit of regard on that front. He almost certainly won't be a threat, but maybe he could be. And it is probably a monkey psychology thing, because with women, a woman could have a gun, but until you see it, she's still just a woman. And that's a terrible sexist thing to say, but it's the case. Remember, Bagalzi 2026, buy a gun and learn to shoot it 2026. Women, you haven't bought a gun, you probably should. But anyway, the reason you see a fair number of these women walking around succeeding and becoming actually cool on this masculine level is this is not actually all that hard to do. Feminine coolness is built on master level bluffing. Whereas becoming relatively cool as a woman going the masculine route, it's a lot safer. Get good at something, draw a perimeter and be able to defend it, or to impose and understand exactly how much and when you can impose. Men will want you, women will want to be you. It's actually pretty crazy how cool, just how cool, a woman going this route can become. But then you have the peak coolness. Women going all the way to the top, to the masculine side of coolness. Very difficult. Super easy to fuck up. Because this is where you get into violence. Literal or metaphorical. This is actual peak coolness. This is not just mastering something and being respected on that front. This is mastery, or the mastery of one's ability to subjugate other people. In dudes, these are the strong men. These are the foxes, the lions, the snakes. These are the people with intense enough willpower they can impose their shit on or over or in spite of others' wills. All the others' wills. Or maybe not all, actually. If it is actually all, then those are the actual strongmen of history. But if you can impose your will among other people, then this is where you are. But it's a spectrum. The professional or technician tier is cool because they're respected, but they don't impose is the thing. Ergo, they aren't necessarily in conflict with other people, or they aren't feast or famine types. And that is something you'll notice of the coolest people, is they are feast or famine types. But really, the reason you think they're cool is because they're usually feasting. They are skilled enough, they are dominant enough to be feasting most of the time, to be beating people most of the time, to be imposing their will successfully most of the time. And because this is the peak coolness of masculinity, or within masculinity, you see mostly dudes in this sphere. So why is it so difficult for women to break into this sphere, or to become cool this way? Well, on the first level, and again, unfortunately, terrible thing, but it seems to be the case, nobody really takes women seriously, at least by default, here, or on this level. As in, if a woman were going to compete with a dude who's operating on this level, odds are better she would be competing from the feminine perspective. She would be a cool feminine competing against a cool masculine, not a cool woman in the masculine competing against a cool dude in the masculine. Because, and I say this without malice, you're a girl. When a situation is getting actually heated, 9 times out of 10, I'm not looking to a woman for instruction or for signaling. Even if under polite circumstances, that is the way things are arranged, she's the captain, the moment something gets weird and ugly, I'm handling things. Or at least the responsibility for whatever's going down is on my shoulders. And you'll notice around women, if you're a dude, the moment anything starts getting actually ugly, usually women will move themselves behind you, provided she's not the fucking dummy who started this whole thing. Which, by the way, would be an example of overstepping or bluffing, except in these situations, she's using your stupid ass as leverage. And you don't want to be around people like that. Anyway, for a woman to succeed on this peak level of competitive masculinity, she needs something that will allow her to go toe-to-toe with men and win, starting with a debuff. So, using an extreme physical situation as an example, not that this is the field you'll see women like this fighting on all the time, but they did back in the day, and there are examples. You'd better have a gun or a kick-ass spear, and you'd better know how to use it really well, or you're competing in business. you'd better be a fox. You'd better be Rommel tier. And ultimately, you need to be able to win knowing nobody is coming to help you. I think that's also a debuff for most women. Not all, actually. But I think thanks to gender, most women are programmed, deep programmed, to avoid situations in which they are absolutely flying solo. Or if they do end up in a situation they are flying solo, then to get attached to some kind of support network as fast as possible. Some women are able not to need to do that, or to break that programming, or I wonder if that programming didn't get in early enough, or maybe it... Because gender is weird. Maybe gender is like seasoning layers of lasagna. No matter what you do, it's still lasagna, but the seasoning... If you started seasoning too late, then it's not a super seasoned lasagna. I'm actually very proud of that analogy I just pulled out of my ass. 30 minutes into a video nobody's going to watch. Because we are head deep into the whatever arc, and I'm not changing the title. I'd rather be low tier cool than high tier popular. Because at least if I'm low tier cool, then I've achieved something you can't take from me. You can take my shit from me, but I'll always be able to put a little something together because I am a little cool. Anyway, I think another reason you don't see these Admiralty tier cool women, at least very often, especially today, is in modern polite society, you don't see raider chief women running around. And that was already uncommon, but today, violence, at least to that level, well, already violence is regulated, violence is controlled. You're allowed to be violent, but always in service of a state power. Never for yourself, which is where the coolest coolness comes from. And I think the reason soldiers are able to maintain a level of coolness is actually thanks to patriotism or nationalism. The idea that your nation's goals are your goals, ergo the most successful soldiers are the coolest, when in reality you're an employee. So you don't see, or there's not even really an option for Xena to try to step up. CEOs and EDs, those are they aren't joke positions. They are professional positions, they're important positions, but the purpose these positions serve is to draw fire for boards. Everybody and especially fucking paperclips, always complain about billionaire CEOs. They never complain about the hyper-billionaire boards who are the ones actually making decisions. But that's what those roles are designed to do. They're designed to draw fire, and they do those jobs well. So you do see lots of women CEOs, but that doesn't really mean anything. And then entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, there are some in that sphere, but it looks more like the way to succeed as a woman entrepreneur is to go the cool feminine route, which is the cunning route, or rather the water-bending or people-bending route, as opposed to the business warfare route. In essence, I think the main reasons are disinclination for most women, and also fewer opportunities overall. It's hard for everybody to be super cool these days. But I think if the world changed, and we were less lame, we were less they-themy, we were less Christian-y, we were less communist-y or communist dick-riding-y, or really just commercialized ideology dick-riding-y. The popularity, if we were in a less lamely popular or popularly lame world, there would be more opportunities for people to be cool in the masculine fashion. So you'd see more cool dudes. And also, because there would be more opportunities, you would also see more cool women. Still not as many as men, especially going down the masculine route, but there would be more of them. My voice is giving out. I think we're done. I'm fascinated with this stuff because I think I would rather be alone long term than settle for some fucking loser. So I'm educating myself in all the ways women can be actually cool. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.